Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Thank you for joining us on the program today online, thisweekinamerica.us. The Woven Flag is a collection of poems by Margaret Goka about home and family, places, animals, inspiration, questions, and answers. Margaret left home in Maryland to attend college in St. Louis, Missouri at Washington University, majoring in English literature. Afterwards, she moved to California. She completed an MA in Linguistics at San Jose State University, taught English as a second language at Evergreen Valley College. She now has 3 daughters, 6 grandchildren. She's written poetry since she was young and wrote these poems as her children grew up and established their own separate lives. She collected the poems written since she came to California in the book we're talking about in the program today, The Woven Flag. Margaret Goka, our guest on This Week in America. Hi, Margaret. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you.
I really enjoyed having a chance to read The Woven Flag, and I really feel like I know you after reading the book. I feel like we're old friends. We're just getting together for the first time in a while. These are really experiences of your life in the book The Woven Flag, aren't they?
They are. Yes, I have to use my life as something to write about because that's what I know.
Well, yes, you're there experiencing all of this, and as I'm reading that and thinking of what you're going through in your life, I think as a reader you can sort of relate various situations in your life to what you're talking about in the book. And I want to go back where this fascination with poetry began. What was the early influences, and when did you realize I enjoy reading this and I really enjoy writing poetry as well?
Well, I've written poetry since I was young, just for fun, and I continued in college when I was supposed to be studying. I would be writing poetry, but then I'd have to wake myself up and say, you've got to study. I just do it as a way to relax and find out what I'm thinking about.
I've always felt that writing poetry was a real challenge. Just the words are so important, and getting the right words and the right flow as you're writing that. Talk about that. That seems like that has come natural for you from an early age.
Well, I don't know why, but I guess I'm not sure why I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that caught on. You were able to catch on to it at a very early age. I can remember almost teachers in school talking about poetry being something that's inherently difficult. And as I'm reading the poems that you wrote in the book, the Woven Flag, it just seems to come so natural. And has it always been that natural for you?
I worked on writing a lot in college as an undergraduate. I took a class in poetry writing, and I worked on the literary magazine for the school, and it took some practice before I could get so that it would flow out more easily.
Margaret Goka, that's Goka, our guest on This Week in America. We're talking about a book of poetry called The Woven Flag. The book is available at Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, at BookVenture.com in the bookstore. You can link on directly to information on the book at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. I would like to talk about the significance of the title. You start off with a poem that starts, I wove 3 little flags. Where did the title, The Woven Flag, how did you come up with that?
My father used to frequently tell an anecdote about how you can go to New York and see a machine that can weave the American flag. And he said this so often that it just, for me, it invokes my childhood and sitting at the dining room table with my father.
You can almost see that. I mentioned how real the book is, your feelings in the book, The Woven Flag. Margaret Goka, the author, our guest on the program. So many experiences in your life, and it starts in dealing with the children and poems to the children. Talk about that. That had to be a special time, a special moment for you, and you were able to capture it. I'm sure you look back on that now years later, and you can almost relive those memories like they just happened yesterday.
Yes, I can. Well, when you have small children, you're busy most of the time, so not too many poems came out of those years, but the children were there, so they were a good subject to write about.
In one that you write for Kate, childhood is a spaceship full of friends that rockets into the future. That really resonated as I'm reading that, because that is so true. Talk a little bit about how you look at life and you see things maybe a little bit differently. Maybe things we take for granted, you capture and then turn them into to a poem later.
Well, my mother was a biologist and my father was a scientist also, and I learned to observe nature and the world, and to sit back and try to put some of it down on paper.
How long does it normally take you to do that? When you have a particular topic, you've got Cook's Canyon, for example, is a poem. You're talking about the places section of the book, The Woven Flag. When you decide, okay, I'm going to capture this now in a poem, how long does that normally take? I'm sure it's different from poem to poem, but is it a long process?
It can be. Writing the poem the first time doesn't take very long because I don't tend to write pages and pages of, a poem that's pages and pages long. But then later you look back on it and say, is it getting the picture across that you had in your mind? Can somebody understand what you're thinking? And that can go on for a long time before you get a poem that you are satisfied with. Cook's Canyon was a lot longer before, but I cut it back to what I thought was the main message.
And that message gets across. And again, as we're reading that, we see that, we sense that we're there on your experience, and we can recall maybe similar experiences in our lifetimes. The book is called The Woven Flag, a collection of poems that Margaret Goka, the author, has put together about home, family, places, animals, inspiration, questions and answers, even a section on riddles and caffeine and wine, as well as you'll find in the book. One that I found particularly interesting, Memory of Olin Library. And you said you spent so much time there that you could have delivered the mail to me on the 5th floor. Talk about that aspect of your life. The power of words, the power of education obviously came from parents. That's been a very important part of your life, and I can sense you spending a great deal of time in libraries and sort of getting lost in all the books there.
Yes, Olin was a great library at Washington University where I went to college, and I did feel very much at home there. When I was living off campus, we had problems with the heat in our apartment and other things, and I felt like I really lived most of my life in the library rather than where I actually slept and ate breakfast.
And we can find out about those problems you had in the poem In the City of the Broken Furnace. It's all part of The Woven Flag, a collection of poems written by our guest on the program, Margaret Goka. When did you decide, I'm going to save these and eventually publish these and do a collection? Was this an ongoing process, or it just sort of happened? You had these and you decided, I'm going to put these together.
Poems were piling up. I had a collection of them, and I wanted to put them together in some logical order, but I didn't have much spare time when I was teaching, so when I retired, I determined that was something that I wanted to do, so I'm glad I carried it out.
What type of impression has this made on not only your children, but all of the grandchildren? In fact, with the grandchildren, that gives them some insight into their grandmother and their own mother. What's been the impact like on the family in reading these poems and having these memories to share?
Well, I did share all the poems about the children themselves with them, and I didn't really get much of a response from them. They did read them. They didn't object to them, so that's good. The grandchildren, I don't think, have seen the book yet. So.
Well, it will be interesting as they find out more about the family, and the book is called The Woven Flag. This is as I understand, your second book of poems. What was the first book about?
The first book, Chrysalis, was more love poems and poems of that I wrote as a young person in college and the first few years after college.
What are you working on now?
I've just been working on The Woven Flag. I have thought about the fact that I should start collecting poems for another book, but they are in various notebooks, and so I haven't actually gotten around to starting to type those up. They're handwritten.
Do you still actively write poems?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I would assume as you're watching things, observing things in real life, that you've got the notebook there and you're putting these thoughts together.
Yeah, sometimes I journal and I just write prose, but often when I'm writing prose, I'll start writing poetry on and start a poem will appear in my mind, so I'll start writing it down on a page.
Margaret Goka, that's Goka, our guest on This Week in America, author of the book The Woven Flag, a collection of poems. What has this experience been like doing this book, putting the collection together? You've had to go back and look and maybe do some editing with some of the poems, and doing the publicity, doing interviews like this and talking about it, having friends and total strangers read the book and comment on it. It's almost been like this is sort of your life, Margaret Goka, hasn't it been? What kind of experience has it been going back and reliving some of these moments of your life?
It's very nice. I have been gratified that the book came out and that people get to see it. And I'm interested. I've gotten positive reviews, and I'm interested in that sort of thing.
It's interesting. I mentioned in your background an MA in Linguistics. You taught English as a second language at Evergreen Valley College. Talk a little bit about the importance of words and being able to properly express yourself and put those words down on paper and read. Where are we as a society with that now? Sometimes that sort of gets lost in the shuffle as we're focused on, mathematics and science and technology, that type of thing. Words are very important to you, aren't they?
Yes, being able to express yourself is essential. You can't be employed by someone who speaks. Well, the students I worked with were learning English. It was like a foreign language to them. Mostly I was working with Vietnamese refugees. And they were trying to acquire enough English to work for American bosses. Until they did, they were stuck working for other Vietnamese who could understand them. So I worked with all levels. Some people were almost beginners in English, and others were almost fluent in English, because supposedly I was preparing people to go into the college system.
Yes.
So they had to have like a high school degree fluency in English to get through the college.
As I'm reading the book, The Woven Flag, I'm thinking of the power of poetry. You state very eloquently and very simply these thoughts. You capture the moment. I think it gets the reader maybe thinking a little bit more engaged than just reading a sentence or two prose in describing something. Do you find that's necessarily true?
Yes, poetry is different from prose. I think that it's more skeletal, and that you have to fill in. It may jump from idea to idea and not give you a full description. I think prose, it gives you the chance to fill out more of the background to an idea or an event that you're trying to describe.
Yeah, there's a little more thought on the part of the reader that goes into interpreting, and again, their mind can go in different directions. You're recalling it, in particular this book, The Woven Flag, your personal experiences. We can sort of take those and think of our similar experiences as we were going through life. Some of the one poem in particular, as I'm reading, you've got the Christmas poem. You really did an excellent job of capturing that special feeling. That had to be a very warm time for you in capturing that.
Yes, that was when I was happily married, and my children were young, and it was a happy time. And I was asked to write that poem by my church. They knew that I wrote poetry, and they said, "Well, why don't you write a poem for us about Christmas?" So that's what came out.
And it really captures the whole aura of Christmas. Another one, it's one, and we all struggle with this. The name of the poem is "To Comfort a Woman Who Has Lost a Child," and you do a very, very great job in explaining that in poetic form. Talk about putting that poem together.
Well, a friend of mine is the sole survivor of her family, and she's actually lost 2 children now, and her husband. And I was wanting to express something to her, and I showed her the poem, and she wanted me to make a minor change to it, which I did. But I think it's not it's not a common experience, but it's sort of a universal experience too.
It is, and one that people can sense, and if they're in that position where they've got a loved one or a friend who has lost a child, you sort of, you really don't quite know what to say, and that was a very touching poem. A minute or so left in the program. You mentioned the church had asked you to put the poem together, and I know you write a lot of poems that are used with people there. It has to be a good feeling to know that what you're writing is inspirational for some people, and maybe even helps them through some difficult times that they go through. It has to make you feel good that I'm touching people in a very positive way with what I'm writing.
Yes, that does make me feel good. I think that's one of the upsides of writing, which can be sort of a solitary pursuit.
Yeah, you're there, I'm sure, by yourself, and you're writing your thoughts, and you're wondering how others will interpret these. In the case of the Woven Flag, they are interpreting very, very well and adapting to their circumstances. The Woven Flag, a collection of poems. The author is Margaret Goka, Goka. The book is available at Amazon.com, BarnesandNobleOnline.com. You'll find it at BookVenture.com in the bookstore as well. Links on directly to those sites at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Margaret, an excellent book. Thank you so much for sharing the background with us on our program today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for talking with me.
You're welcome. Margaret Goka, our guest on the program. The book is called The Woven Flag. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, as well as BookVenture. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back after these messages.